It's the president's job and sworn duty to safeguard taxpayer dollars and the United States government's foreign policy. Getting to the bottom of a corruption scandal in Ukraine is in the American national interest. And if you want to understand why that complainant is so obviously politically biased, when he says that the president is threatening national security by trying to expose corruption, when he says, or she, that the president is hurting national security by trying to get to the bottom of a gigantic scandal that nobody has unearthed, the president is the whistleblower here. The president of the United States is the whistleblower. And this individual is a saboteur trying to undermine a democratically elected government.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, Democrats launch a preemptive first strike against President Trump, and it is failing immensely as President Trump is prepared and everything is falling into place. You guys are going to want to stick around to check out the latest stories which outline that, plus General Flynn and the prosecutor who resigned this weekend because they were exposed by some great investigative reporting. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. So you guys want to stick around and check this out. Hi, I'm Craig and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. And boy, do we have another great show for you guys today. As always, I start by saying thank you to everybody who's hit that subscribe button. If you haven't, come here, click the big red subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications. And here we are, Q Post 3570. August 1st was the last Q Post we have. The Q boards have been down since, I think, August 5th of this year. So we're waiting for the Q board to come back up. As soon as it comes back up, we will have presumably more Q posts. But for now, everything is happening just as Q predicted. And we are in the middle of an incredible battle where we are exposing these evil deep state globalist traitors that President Trump is in a battle with as we speak. This is huge, and it's continuing to blow up bigger and bigger. So for now, we are going to get started on the latest story. But before we do that, I always encourage everyone to come back here and share these videos on your social media. Get the word out that way. Why do I do that? Look, I want you guys to share these videos because suppression is real. Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and the rest are all trying to suppress this content. When Q tells us that we are the news now, Q's not just telling that to us to let us know that what we're doing is important. He's telling that to let us know that we are the ones who are going to be suppressed by these other big fake media, fake news corporations who claim to be the news. So that's what we're up against. And if you don't believe me, this came out a long time ago. First of all, this is the YouTube controversial query blacklist. So they have a blacklist over at YouTube. This was a part of that Zach Voorhees document dump from Google. And what do you know? QAnon just so happens to be right there prominently on the controversial query blacklist. So if you think we're not being suppressed, there's multiple examples and evidence. So that's all the more reason to come and support this channel and get this content out there. It's up to you guys to go down, hit the share button on this video, go back, watch these videos, share them on your social media. And if you scratch your head, go, what is QAnon the Great Awakening? And what's this guy talking about? Watch this video right here. What is QAnon the Great Awakening? Share that on your social media and get the word out that way. So today we're going to start with the exact thing that Q predicted happening, and the Dems have walked directly into the trap that was set for them. House Democrats are subpoenaing Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani in the impeachment probe. Well, that's fascinating. That is so fascinating that that would happen, especially right after President Trump's come out and basically said that Adam Schiff is illegally making up fake and terrible statements, pretending to be the president of the United States, and in an important call to the Ukrainian president, and then reading it aloud to Congress and the American people. It bore no relationship to what was said on the call between the president and the president of Ukraine. And then President Trump says something very interesting. Arrest for treason? He said this twice now in the last few tweets about Adam Schiff, calling for people to ask whether or not we should be looking at them for fraud and corruption and treason. So, look, here we are. We are at this incredible point in time where Q told us this would happen, right? Rudy, New York City, relationships high, insurance file, Uma Abedin, Anthony Weiner, the insurance file. What if that insurance file that the NYPD took possession of after they seized Anthony Weiner's laptop didn't just have dirt on what we have talked about up to this point, meaning talking about the videos and the blackmail with the what we talked about with obviously the speculation about the evidence that could be on this insurance file, the blackmail that could be on it, videotapes of disturbing things. But what if some of the other parts of this insurance file weren't having to do with the occult ritualistic abuse of children? What if other files on there were, I don't know, documentable proof that Hillary Clinton and her cohorts were using Ukraine as a landing for all of their blackmail, extortion, and corruption operations, a place to shield themselves, but then also to launch deep state operations against the United States, against President Trump from? What if Ukraine was all of that? And that was quiet until just now, when, of course, we know back in April of 2018, Rudy Giuliani joined President Trump's legal team. So, and he was directly discussing all this with Mueller. Well, that's interesting, because if Rudy Giuliani was taking all the stuff that he had found from that insurance file and going to Robert Mueller, maybe that's why Robert Mueller was forced to come out and say that President Trump did nothing wrong. Because he couldn't lie, because they had the proof to show that everything that Mueller and the Democrats were accusing President Trump of, in fact, the Democrats and Mueller were guilty of. Right? And this was back in April of 2018 when we were being told this. Q says, we have everything. How can we use what we know? How do you legally inject, make public, use as evidence? What are you witnessing unfold? Trust the plan. Q. Now, this is why a lot of people think that this whistleblower is a part of the broader plan, the operation, and that President Trump did this purposefully to bring this whole Ukrainian case to light so that they could go after the corruption with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden in Ukraine and China. And that's the tip of the iceberg. But those are the people that want to take over this country, and we have to expose them, right? They want to control this country. They cannot be involved in these illicit, corrupt operations in foreign countries where they get millions of dollars for basically doing nothing except selling their office to the highest bidder. That's literally what we are seeing right now. So I'm just pointing this out as a matter of we need to keep digging. Not to mention Ukraine. The Burisma story is massive, and it doesn't just involve the Bidens. It involves U.S. funds and the International Monetary Fund. Now, what happened? Back during Barack Obama's administration, we all know what happened in Ukraine. There was a large portion of the Donbass area that was annexed by the Russian government. What happened was they basically walked across the border after some contentions over different elections and different things, and they took control of a large portion of Ukraine. Now, with that being said, there was a crisis and there was a need to get money to all the banks to keep the economy from failing, so on and so forth. Well, what happened? We had these big organizations like the IMF in the US giving billions of dollars in aid to Ukraine. Now, where did that aid go? Well, it went to a private bank, or it is a private bank called Private Bank, which is owned by a very large wealthy individual in Ukraine who goes by the name of Igor Kolomoisky, right? And this guy, if you start reading through the story and kind of put some of the dots together, it seems has these incredible connections to the former corrupt regimes, and they were the ones who were receiving billions of dollars in bailout money when the state nationalized this private bank, right, in 2016, right after President Trump got elected. And as it says right here, the International Finance Agency had rushed the money to Ukraine in April in response to what the IMF managing director Christine Lagarde called a major crisis. She went on to hail the government's unprecedented resolve in developing a bold economic program to secure macroeconomic and financial security over the next 5 months. The international agency poured the equivalent of $4.5 billion into the National Bank of Ukraine, the country's central bank. Much of this money was urgently needed to prop up the local commercial banks. In theory, the IMF appeared to require direct supervision of how the Ukrainian banks used the aid. In fact, it appears the banks got to select their own auditors. Well, that's interesting because Kolomoisky's bank, which was obviously, like I said, taken over by the state, later revealed was a recipient of billions of dollars from the IMF. and it's believed that those funds were looted. But the question is, at the end of this article, which I think is important, where are the billions of dollars that went missing in Ukraine? What do Obama, Biden, and Kerry and their children know about where that money is, and are they connected? So what have we talked about in Q here before? We've talked about these major deals, these international global deals, whether it's climate change or whatever, you name it, the TPP or any of these global pacts, trades. What do? They set up these unaccountable money slush funds, which can ship money out of the United States, out of the IMF to, foreign countries where we apparently have these huge rackets of influence, which we then just apparently, not we, but the corrupt Democrats and others, corrupt rhinos and the rest, they just funnel back into their own pockets. So you wonder why our country was being sold out globally to China and to Ukraine and to you name it. We were being sold out globally because the people running our country were basically just enriching themselves, lining their own pockets with the money that was being laundered overseas, allegedly. So that's one story, right? Here's another one. Peter Schweitzer just came out and dropped the Biden corruption documents because, the mainstream media is trying to say, oh, there's nothing wrong with Hunter Biden going and working in China and working in, Ukraine, except in Peter Schweitzer's own release here. What he talks about is the book that he wrote, Secret Empires, and how it relates to what we're looking at today with this whole Hunter Biden thing. So I'm going to read the 3 key points from this release because I think they're worth sharing. But it says, the narrative suggesting that Hunter Biden and his partner played only a passive role at the Chinese firm is simply false. They show a document that shows Hunter Biden was on the board of directors of the investment firm directly managing a $1.5 billion fund. His business partner, Devon Archer, was vice chairman and sat on the company's investment committee. These are not merely advisory roles. So the mainstream media's twist is this now. Oh, well, they didn't get $1.5 billion from China. They just got a few $100,000. No worries. Well, that's not true, because even though they were only paid, I don't know, a few $100,000 or a few $1 million, they were given control of an investment fund worth $1.5 billion. And this is Devon Archer, and this is Hunter Biden. And they don't talk about the other third partner, which is so interesting. Nobody wants to mention Christopher Hines. Who is Christopher Hines? The stepson of John Kerry, who was working with Hunter Biden and Devon Archer at this Rosemont Seneca firm. He also so happens to have the last name Hines. If you guys have ever had Heinz ketchup or Heinz mustard or Heinz whatever, you'll know that's the family we're talking about here. Obviously, John Kerry's married to the Heinz heiress, whose son, Christopher, is John Kerry's stepson. But nobody wants to talk about that. 2, Biden defenders say Hunter did not receive a stake in BHR, which is Bohai Harvest, which is the Chinese firm, until after his father left office. In fact, Rosemont Seneca, Hunter's firm, held a 30% stake in Bohai Harvest alongside its other American partner, the Thornton Group. This is demonstrated by their own documents, which you can read. I'll leave a link to this. Biden's attorney claims Hunter's interest in Bohai Harvest amount to only $420,000 initial investment. This argument relies on flimsy distinction between Bohai Harvest, RST, Rosemont Seneca, and the investment management company and the investment fund it oversees. While records currently available do not disclose the precise level of compensation Hunter Biden received as part of this deal, his $420,000 investment in the management company bought him influence over $1.5 billion in capital backed by the authority of the Chinese government, as I said before. 3, Bohai Harvest is explicit about the value of its American partners. They literally say in their own statements, Bohai Harvest, with its unique mixed ownership, combines the resources and platforms of China's largest financial institutions, the money guys, and the networks and know-how of our U.S.-based investment fund and advisory shareholders. Those are the bought and paid for office holders and operatives. So this is how business works in China anyway. I mean, for them, I don't even know that they really realize that they're doing something wrong, because it's so prevalent and common in China for corruption and the communist leaders to take bribes. So for them, I think they're just looking at this as the way they do business. But now we're turning around and saying, this is not how you do business. And we will not allow this to happen, because if we allow China to keep doing this, they're eventually going to do this with the rest of the world, which they've already started to do in many different developing countries, and they've exerted incredible influence on other major nations as well. So just thought I'd bring that up. Interestingly enough, Tucker Carlson on his show the other night comes out and shows this picture that they apparently obtained. Here's Devin Archer, here's Joe Biden, here's Hunter Biden. And this photo was taken, a few months after both Hunter Biden and Devin Archer were appointed to the board of Burisma Holdings, the Ukrainian gas company. So, which was under investigation by the prosecutors, come out in a sworn affidavit and said that basically Joe Biden was committing crimes and his son were committing crimes in the Ukraine. And that's what Rudy Giuliani's coming out with. So, look, this is where we're at. It gets worse and worse. Not to mention, you want to keep tying Ukraine in here. Pelosi happens to be employing this female Ukrainian party girl. Now, I'm not going to say anything other than this is all interesting. The Gateway pundit here reported on this, talking about how one of her top aides is this Ukrainian party girl whose family is connected to the Ukrainian military. And it's just, there's a lot of really suspicious connections here, how this woman came into the country, how she became a top aide to Nancy Pelosi, and then the connections to Ukraine. Her mom is in the Ukrainian army, and her dad was in the foreign service. And basically, I think that the sum of this article here is interesting. It says, why is this girl on Pelosi's staff? Why does Pelosi have a Ukrainian party girl whose parents are connected to the Ukrainian military and government on her staff? What is going on here? I mean, look, it could all be a coincidence, but these are questions you have to ask yourself, especially as you see how quickly, without even reading the transcript of the phone call, Nancy Pelosi was up in front of Congress calling for impeachment, because Ukraine hits close to home for these people. Never forget that. Not to mention that the ICIG, the Intelligence Community Inspector General, admits that it changed the whistleblower rules because of the anti-Trump complaint. So literally, you have a corrupt intelligence community who is rewriting the rules, moving the goalposts behind closed doors, saying that now anybody can just come forward and make complaints and say complete hearsay about anyone, and we can have a full investigation. It can take years of Congress's time, and you're just like, this is not going to end well. Unless, like we've talked about before, this was all part of a mastermind plan to make it so that hearsay could be admitted, and then we can go, because by the standard that they've set, pretty much anybody who's been on the QAnon boards for a while can go become a whistleblower and say, look, I've heard all this stuff from a federal government agent saying that this is all happening. We need to investigate it. So I'm waiting for that to happen. Not to mention they came out with this crazy the New York Times, right, in response to everything, says, Trump pressed Australian leader to help Barr investigate the inquiry's origins. Oh my gosh. A president of the United States asking another world leader to help with an investigation. That's impeachment. That's basically the high crimes and misdemeanors. What else do you need to know? Well, perhaps New York Times would have been more diligent and done a little bit of an investigation before they published this story, and read that we do have a mutual legal assistance doctrine, a treaty between the United States and Australia, which was signed back in 1997. Oh, wow, where did that come from, right? And this basically outlines how we are engaged in helping each other with mutual legal assistance and investigations since 1997, probably before then as well. But New York Times, they will not read that. And of course, the letter that was sent from the Australian ambassador to Attorney General Bill Barr back in 2019, or May of 2019, basically destroys everything and debunks it, because the letter, here's the quote from the letter. It says, well, first they tell you what the New York Times says, and that how it shows the extent to which Mr. Trump sees the Attorney General as a critical partner in his goal to show that Mueller investigation had corrupt and partisan origins, and the extent that Mr. Trump sees the Justice Department inquiry as a potential way to gain leverage over Americans' closest allies. Gain leverage over allies? We're asking them to help us investigate corruption that was global and rampant, abusing the intelligence community, abusing the surveillance systems, abusing everything in order to enrich themselves and destroy our country from within. And the New York Times calls that he's trying to gain leverage over America's closest allies. Give me a break. Give me a break. But when you read the letter from the Australian ambassador, it's interesting because he says in May 28th, 2019, the Australian government will use its best endeavor to support your efforts in this matter. While Australia's former High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, the Honourable Alexander Downer, is no longer employed by the government, we stand ready to provide you with all relevant information to support your inquiries. Well, that wasn't that hard, but, leave it to the New York Times to not do any research and to just write a fake news story in order to go after the president. So deep state panicking. Bill Barr is meeting with British and Italian intel officials right now. And guess what happened shortly after this meeting? The Vatican police just happened to go and raid the top offices of some of the Holy See's Secretariat of State and its Financial Information Authority. Wow. Well, that might mean that we are going to continue to take down this criminal racket, this cabal, this global cabal of individuals who are trying to steal America's wealth and to ruin it and to plunge it into chaos and to basically destroy our country and to make China the new global power so that they can just abuse people even further. If you can't see this on its face right now, it's prima facie. It's so obvious, right? Don't remember. Q told us, Italy is with POTUS. The Democrats have been trying to prevent this disclosure of the Five Eyes material, but it's not going to happen. So don't forget that. Don't forget that. That is what is coming. Now, of course, George Papadopoulos pointing out John Brennan doesn't even understand that the foreign assets he weaponized against the United States, that George Papadopoulos dealt with personally, Mifsud, Downer, Turk, Halper, and more, are being exposed by the same governments he previously exploited to interfere in the 2016 election. Italy was the first domino. So what George is saying here is that what John Brennan doesn't get is that all of those countries who they extorted into going after President Trump have withdrawn their support of Brennan and are now on Trump's side trying to help him clean up their swamps. Well, that's interesting. Not to mention the American Report, Mary Fanning and Alan Jones doing incredible work. Look at this. So we all know the story of the hammer. We all know what happened with this. We've talked about it here on the channel ad nauseum. I'll leave links to the AmericanReport.org. You can go read their stuff. But to sum it all up, what happened here is we had this incredible abuse of our Department of Justice and our legal system against people, patriots like General Flynn, who are now fighting for their lives legally. But it seems to me what nobody talks about in the mainstream news is that the same people who set up Flynn, the same investigators who set up Flynn and went to the Mueller special counsel, ended up taking over the prosecution of Flynn's case. Now remember, these same agents, these DOJ agents and FBI agents, these same people who took over the Flynn case, the DOJ prosecutor, I should say, they are the ones who interviewed this guy, Dennis Montgomery, the guy who was the whistleblower who exposed Obama for using the super surveillance system, the hammer, illegally to spy on his political enemies. Now, you want to hear something fascinating? I'm going to tell you a little story that was brought to my attention by Mary Fanning from the American Report, who's an incredible journalist, and Alan Jones. They do great work. But their story they've been uncovering for quite some time. It talks about the hammer. It talks about Brennan, Clapper, Obama's illegal abuse of the super surveillance system, how that is really what triggered this whole Russia hoax thing. The day after General McInerney went on Operation Freedom with Dave Janda and exposed this super surveillance system and its abuse was the day that James Comey appointed the special counsel or called for the special counsel investigation into President Trump. And we know Comey's dirty as it gets, right? So if you go through this story, I'll leave a link. You can read the full thing. But so now what's come out is the Assistant U.S. Attorney Deborah Curtis, who was in charge, the lead prosecutor against General Flynn, was called out in a story from the American Report the other day. Well, what story was that? It's this story right here. We talked about in the last episode, the real whistleblower story. Dennis Montgomery and the way that the hammer and the hard drives, wiretapping of Trump. You guys should go watch that last episode if you want to get caught up. But this is what happened. Sidney Powell, the attorney for General Flynn, went on Twitter on the 27th, a few days ago, and tweeted out this story by Mary Fanning and Alan Jones. Well, what happens over the weekend? What happened over this weekend? Well, interestingly enough, as pointed out here in this story, we've had a very interesting step down. So I'm going to read this story. I'm going to leave a link to it if you want to read the whole thing, but I'm going to just read the conclusion here. It shows the tweet we just looked at from Sidney Powell. It says, Attorney Powell tweeted the American Reports article on Friday afternoon that connected Curtis's lead role in General Flynn's prosecution to the receipt of Dennis Montgomery's handover of 47 hard drives of evidence that, according to Montgomery, included illegally harvested information on General Flynn. Curtis suddenly, over the weekend, left the DOJ, and there's no evidence that the two events are connected, but they seem very suspicious. The scandal... it says here, the final line here, this scandal covering up Curtis's involvement in burying the FBI's whistleblower investigation of the Hammer is a case of massive prosecutorial misconduct that is grounds for General Michael Flynn's case to be dismissed. Other cases could be dismissed as well. Let me explain what happened here. Let me explain what they're saying. What they're basically saying is that this woman, this Deborah Curtis, was privy to information that was being illegally taken by the Hammer, by the Obama administration, against Flynn and others. She was illegally seeing, allegedly illegally, looking at attorney-client privilege conversations, emails, you name it. And now those are the same people who are in court, or were in court, trying to prosecute General Flynn, who have to step down over the weekend mysteriously right after Sidney Powell points out, hey, we know what you're doing. We know that all the same players that have been involved since Dennis Montgomery are the same ones trying to set us up now. Well, I'm going to leave that for you guys. That's pretty much where I'm going to go ahead and leave it right now, because there's so much information that you guys need to dig through it, and I think you can do that. There's a lot of information to glean off this, but that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. I want to say thank you guys for watching this episode. A few more things before we go. Obviously, come here, click the subscribe button if you haven't. Watch these videos, share them on your social media, because like we talked about before, there is content suppression, so we have to share these videos. And leave your thoughts, theories, and insights below. I want to hear what you guys have to say about all of this. Also, are you guys going to be in Miami in the next week? Are you in Miami? Or are you planning to come to the American Priority Conference? If you're not, please think about it. There's going to be this great conference. There's still time to get tickets. And there'll be a link in the description. And if you use the coupon code Craig, you'll get $150 off your ticket. Now, what is the American Priority Conference? It's happening October 10th through 12th in Miami at Trump National in Doral. It's going to be epic. We got Don Jr., Sarah Sanders, Matt Gaetz, Charlie Kirk, Dinesh D'Souza, Jason Chaffetz, Tom Fitton, James O'Keefe, just to name a few. And if you want to meet these people and you want to talk to them and get a one-on-one or hear them speak, please sign up. And there's also a bunch of different events. There's going to be concerts and comedy by Terrence Williams, if you guys know him on Twitter. And of course, there's going to be a charity golf tournament, which I'm going to be working with. So if you guys want to get involved, come here to the website using the link in the description, American Priority Conference 2019 in Miami. Get your tickets now. I encourage you all to do that. Also, don't forget to be brave. Download the Brave browser. What is it? It's it's an internet browser. You download it and it blocks ads, and they support the channel when you download it using the link in the description. You download it, install it, and run it just like you would Google Chrome or Windows Internet Explorer. And it blocks the ads, and it makes your life so much easier on the internet. Plus, like I said, they make a donation to Just Informed Talk every time you download it. So it's a win-win. I love the product. I use it, so that's why I'm recommending it to you. Also, don't forget to check out JUSTINFORMEDNEWS.com, the official website for Just Informed Talk. Links to the Q stuff, different news sites, breaking news, and of course, the latest videos from the channel. That's JUSTINFORMEDNEWS.com. Also, I have a Twitter set up at JustInformedU if you want to connect outside the channel. That's Just Informed Talk's official Twitter page. You can come over here and give me a like and a follow, and we can have a conversation. It's a great time. So definitely come find me over on Twitter at JustInformedU. A couple other ways you can help out. I have a Patreon, Patreon.com set up. It's a crowdfunding website. You come, it's a monthly donation. You click this button to become a patron. Your support keeps this channel alive. Look, your support is what keeps this channel going. Thank you so much for it. Also, I have a GoFundMe set up. If you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation, the link to both those will be in the description. Links to everything will be in the description, so go check that out. Now, before we go, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. Now, I want to share this verse out of the book of Philippians. It's chapter 3, and then we're going to talk about chapter 3, verse, I believe it's 7 through 11. But let's listen to these words, and then we'll talk about them. It says, "But everything that was a gain to me, I have considered to be a loss because of Christ. More than that, I also consider everything to be a loss in view of the surpassing value of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. Because of him, I have suffered the loss of all things and consider them filth, so that I may gain Christ and be found in him, not having a righteousness of my own from the law, but one that is through faith in Christ, the righteousness from God based on faith. My goal is to know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being conformed to his death, assuming that I will somehow reach the resurrection from among the dead." Well, what's that saying? It's kind of an interesting passage there, and the reason why I share it with you guys is because I want us all to remind ourselves that all of the things that are in this world, all the things that we rely on, all the things that we think make us who we are, they mean nothing. We have to remind ourselves every day that God is what matters, and that we are imperfect people, but we are people of God, and we are called to live a righteous life, which means we have to work hard every day to be righteous, to do unto others as we wish unto ourselves, to be righteous and kind and caring and loving and understanding. And these are hard things to do. I mean, they sound simple, principally speaking, but in practice, these things can be hard. And I'm definitely not perfect. I make mistakes all the time, but I put my faith in God and I say, God, if you just guide me through this, if you help me become a better man for you, if you give me the strength and courage and wisdom to do what is right for you, then I can do what is right for the world. And that's what we need to remind ourselves. And that's what I'm reminding you guys, to call on God so that you may help yourself, but you may also, more importantly, help others. And that's what my call to action is for you. Go into the world, talk to your friends and family, your coworkers, even people you meet on the street, tell them about God's glory and how they are saved. You'll be surprised at how many incredible blessings God will give you. But that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. And I want to say thank you guys for watching this episode of Just Informed Talk. A few more things. Come here, click the big red subscribe button if you haven't, and tap it, bop it, twist it, pop it, whatever. Hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. That's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.